So, one of the videos I've seen recently was Senator Hotley with this professor, and he was trying to open up a conversation, and the woman was being, very arrogant and very condescending and very lofty, hoity toity type. Oh, I'm so much better than you. You are just the lowly peasant, and I can't believe I'm even in here having to talk with you type person. And she's this woman, you got to realize she's in his house. It's like walking into a courtroom and telling the judge, yo, 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 what's up? You're an idiot. Bite me. Oh, you think you're all great? You're in his house, people. That's his house. Okay? You might want to watch yourself, first of all. Second of all, you're there to ask them for something. You're there to testify on behalf of something that you are passionate about, and you're wanting something from them. Okay, so the idea that they come in very aggressive and so forth, it's like, well, you're just coming in here to have an argument. You're just coming in here to have a fight. You're not actually interested in providing me any good information. So why should I listen to you? So when I looked at uh, the senator's response, it was kind of understandable. Um, I think if I look at it and I went back and played Monday morning quarterback, what would I do? With all the knowledge and thinking that I have, how would I respond to this woman? There's a lot of things that I would say, and there's certain things that, I mean, let's start the video, and I'll give my comments as we go.
Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh.
So I'm going to stop it there for a second. There's two parts that stick out to me as a person, okay? And, well, three, with her little, like you're talking down to a little kid or an idiot or a moron and going, you're supposed to do this, and it's something that's like super obvious to them. And he's asking her a question. Can men get pregnant? Now, this has been a hot topic. Now, again, he has a job to do. We hired him, right? Let's not focus on what, we know that a lot of politicians are corrupt. That's because they spend all their time doing the things we don't want them to do, but we need to talk about what they're supposed to be doing, because if we don't keep them busy doing what they're supposed to do, they get a little bored, idle hands do devil's work. And so they go off and be corrupt. Well, we need to keep them busy, focused on the things that we want them to do, and that's unfortunately not what they do. But in this situation, you're having a hearing to gather information. His job is to communicate with all kinds of people, okay? And to gain information on subjects from, super knowledgeable type people, and listen to all of his constituents and understand what their concerns are, understand what their desires are, understand what they want him to do so that he can represent them. He has to understand. We have to communicate. We have to talk. Okay? If the person in front of him was Spanish, he would need a translator. Okay? And like I said, he's asking her a question because he knows that this is something that is of coming up. People are trying to say that the word man has changed, that the word women has changed, but nobody wants to give a new definition. Okay? It's like standing there and saying, pretend for a second that Senator Hotley is colorblind. He doesn't know what green is, and he's asking this person because he's in there to talk about, you know, the green plants and why the green is the way the green, and he's in there to do this. He has to deal with every subject matter out there, whether he's super knowledgeable or not. Call in the expert and say, okay, well, here's the thing. I'm trying to figure out what green is. And you go, well, okay, green is a color because when you look at light, if you break light apart, and we can do it with a prism, you get different wavelengths. And at different wavelengths, it registers a color to individuals in their brains. Okay, so they see it as a different hue or a different this. And you, like, even if all you see is black and white, you still see gray. You still see a gradient, an in-between type of thing that creates the lines and everything, and shading. But for people, they see even a different color. And what it is it's the wavelengths. And green is a combination of blue wavelength and yellow wavelength. And there's a spectrum of that wavelength combination that we call green. And then there's the blue one and the yellow one, and these are cool. You can go in and explain what color is. He's asking. But she's like, oh, you should just know. You should just know what green is. Well, what if he's colorblind? What if he's colorblind? What if all he sees is black and white? His job is to figure out, is to communicate with you and find a way to talk. You're telling him there's this new definition for man. And you can't tell me that you're saying that, oh, well, everybody should know what a man is, because you're trying to break them into groups. He's trying to find the common communication level to understand here, because he's like, I get told by many people this is a women's issue. And she's like, well, we can recognize other groups without recognizing this and that and the other. And it's like, okay, so we're trying to talk in general because we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. And the definition of man and woman are very inclusive of all of the type of people that are birth givers. Okay, women, those are the birth givers. Okay, that's very inclusive. You're not excluding anybody from that definition. The definition of woman is adult, human, female. They're in there to talk about a biological thing. In the sense of biology, are we not going to talk with biology terms? Because under biology, it's women. And we say that, and that's a very common term. It's used all over the planet. Every language in the world has it. Since the beginning of man, we've had that word. Okay? Women, men, we've had them. But you're trying to tell me that it includes these other groups. We can recognize these groups. Okay. Let's say you're just trying to recognize a group that's included in men or included in these things. And you say cis men or many cis women, and many cis women can give birth, many cis women can't give birth. There are trans men who can give birth. Okay, so you're saying that there's a need to be a little bit more groupy here. Well, did you mention the Irish women, or the black women, or the women on stilts, or did you mention the women with green eyes, or the women with red hair, or the women with, I mean, what about those? And she's like, she's going off on all these groups, and it's like, so you're saying that you include, you know, the trans men in your definition of men. Okay, I'm trying to get an idea and be able to talk about stuff. So he's asking her, so this isn't a women's issue then, because you're saying trans men. Is that how that works? So they're not women, they're men. And I keep getting told this is a women's issue. So how do I talk to you about this? How do we communicate so I can learn more and make things? And she's coming off as very pompous and very arrogant. So there's the three parts. You know, she's super pompous and arrogant. She's copying an attitude with him, which means I don't need anything from you. I don't need you to help all these. You're just in the way. You're a lesser being. That's not good. She's being divisive. She's dividing people up. She's not mentioning any of the other groups out there. What about veteran women? What about women who had hysterectomies? I didn't hear her mention them. She's not being very inclusive, is she? I mean, the definition that you find for women from Senator Hotley, he goes, well, he appears to be using the standard definition that exists. Sorry about that. He appears to be using the standard definition that exists, but she wants to do all of these other groupings things. So she's not interested in communicating with him at all. So why would you come if you're just not interested in talking and trying to persuade somebody or give them the information that they need? You know? So those are the three things.
So your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence?
Okay, stop for a second. I've hit this topic a million times before. Okay? Gender dysphoric people don't try to kill themselves because they're denied that they exist. Nobody's denying that they exist. Nobody says that, oh, you don't exist. And not only that, that's not why they do it. It's the clash. It's the clash between what they think they should be and reality, and they say, I can never be. I've never had to take my daughter in. The suicide attempts, the feeling suicidal and having to take her in. And she comes to me and she says, I can't take it anymore, Dad. I can't. There's no reason. And you got to take care of her. None, ever. All of the other people that I've talked to that have been taken in and suicidal, none of them say that it's because, oh, they treat me like I don't exist. No, that is not it at all. Okay? I don't even think that's the issue for transvestites. Transvestites are they're not even worried that people pretend that they don't exist. You know? They're worried because, oh, well, I'm not getting enough likes and shares. That's the only type of they don't think I exist that they worry about. They're doing it for attention. Okay, so if I'm not giving attention to all these people, they're going to do this? No. They go out and they start a confrontation with people in the streets. They go out and they complain about their pronouns and talk about how they're oppressed. They do all of these things. This is crazy. Never has any of the gender dysphoric people who are in transgender go through any of that. So she doesn't know what she's talking about. I've brought you in here to talk about this issue, and you want to be divisive and split everybody into multiple groups, and he's trying to communicate with you. And if you sit there and say, well, it's a women's issue, but it's not an issue for women who have had a hysterectomy. It's an issue for women, but it's not this, so I use this so that we can just be, you know, we include just the women who are doing this. No. She's doing it because she wants to break everybody into these little groups and do it that way. There's got to be a different alternative motivation there for her doing it. So the only thing she's showing is that she's a complete idiot. And he's sitting here and saying, yes, my definition that I see is this. Help me understand the other one.
Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you, or are
Absolutely.
they also treated like this, where
No,
they're
they're
told
allowed
that
to
they're
question.
opening up people to
Oh,
violence?
we have a good
by
time in my
questioning?
class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot
I
just in this
know,
exchange.
absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
So the last part is basically just Oliver Hoyding coming to the thing, and he's just like, yeah, I've learned a lot. Apparently, you don't know anything about what you're talking about. You provide no value for anyone here, and you make a mockery of these mental health conditions. So obviously, yes, I've learned a lot. Apparently, the people going to your school are not learning anything. So maybe if I find, somebody wants to come in and say, oh, I went to this school, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, you learned from a professor who's an idiot. Wow, I feel bad for you. I mean, do you need $1? Do you give you a handout? Because you're obviously not going to be able to use that degree for anything because you didn't learn anything. There's no way you could have. So, yeah. I mean, he's just sitting there and he's being super polite, and, oh, it's crazy. So, that's my impression of what went on in there.